Loads of copies, thousands of copies from the 4th century. Yeah, from the 4th centuries onwards.
Slowly. From the 4th century
onwards.
Yeah. How many manuscripts are there in the 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century onwards until time of Islam?
Because
when you say thousands, how many manuscripts in total do you have in the Greek?
It's not like 5,000.
6,000.
Less than 6,000. So you can't say thousands of it. So
Yeah,
in the 4th century, how many did you have?
I don't know the exact numbers.
You're making claims though, thousands.
Oh yeah, in total over
Today
the
we have.
Only a
from
few
the 4th.
countable in hand.
No. From the 4th to the 6th, 7th, or whatever, there were a substantial number of copies.
Okay,
Manuscripts, yeah?
Mark, can I make a quick point?
Yeah.
Bringing Dr. Bart Ehrman again here.
Yeah.
I have a video of this. In that video, he says 94% of the 5,500 manuscripts of the New Testament come from the 9th century or later. I'll give you the video.
Yeah, I don't know the
9th century
I don't
or
know
later.
the numbers, but I'm saying
9th century, nearly a millennium after Jesus.
Right. Here's my point.
So there you go.
Right, let's go back to Bart
How
Ehrman.
can you
No.
say that is the
I don't know the
entire
exact-
Bible is
No,
preserved
no.
when it's 9th century?
1 second.
94%.
So from the
of the
4th
Bible,
century is what I'm saying.
of
From
the New
the 4th
Testament.
century, I don't know how many copies in the 4th. So
I'll
from
tell you in
the
a second.
4th all the way through to say the 10th century, there became these thousands of copies. I don't know the numbers per year. I will be admit
He
that.
says he's from the 9th century,
point you guys need to get
94%
to refute,
of the
okay?
5,500
Yeah, but all I'm
manuscripts.
just saying that the copies.
Which is the majority of the manuscripts.
Well, I'm just saying, from the 4th century, building up through
I've
those
already
centuries,
seen his PhD
we ended
thesis
up with
based,
those thousands
the book is
copies.
based
They have
on.
thousands of differences.
He's like a high school
Yeah.
student
Here's an interesting
trying
thing.
to make a thesis.
All the differences
I would have
have
asked
no
him
significance
So
in the
you have to
main
give your points
messages
on
and
why
core
you
teachings.
refuse that.
Even
Yeah.
Bart
Well,
Ehrman,
you're talking
has
general.
even
Oh, is that what you were saying
said,
up there?
with
Okay.
all
Yes.
the variances
Let's get a
he's
video
talking
actually
about,
to see.
No, I
none
have
of them
read his
affect the
speech
core
thesis.
message.
Core
That's
message is the
It's like, as I said, not even a high school student
all the
makes
core
it
not in the
teachings.
Bible.
We
All the
know,
core teachings.
we know manuscripts has,
All the core teachings.
you know, scribal mistakes.
Anyway, let's have a
We
don't want chaos.
Your reasoning.
Yeah.
So are you gonna
Trinity is
put
not
on the
peripheral.
website your reasoning?
Look. Here's
I think
the
Josh.
Okay.
thesis.
Okay.
Intentional
Okay,
changes
you
in
got
the
it.
Quran by
Okay.
Daniel Brubaker.
So where are you going to refute that?
One moment.
Sorry, what are you guys discussing?
So
This
this
is,
is Brubaker. Now they think they've got something. Don't worry about
definitely
it.
have something.
Like I've refuted these people before, it will be another example
no,
of
you
my
won't.
PowerPoint.
He means
Hold on.
J. Smith.
So is there a
And the
website
lot.
we can go to
One
see your
second.
debate?
The lies they were talking about, like the Quran, 24, 31 versions and so on and so forth, half Quran is different, wash Quran is different. Just type in seashells. Yes, these are seashell missionaries, because you're supporting them. You will see I have done enough examples of refuting them and their lies from Quranic manuscripts themselves.
Okay.
So you can just go
And you
online and
quoted the
search.
sources, right?
Right. So
Where
here,
do I find you?
If you go to SC Dawa and look for seashells, is it seashells?
Oh, seashells is what you're saying, is it?
yeah, just say seashell Quran.
Go look on
And
YouTube.
type my name
Seashells.
Mansur, I'm
So-
sure you'll find this particular video of this.
Dan Brubaker
Yeah.
has found variances in all the oldest manuscripts that exist. Okay, which is about 10 of them.
No, that's not true. He
It
only
is true.
examined. He only examined.
So,
you
how many?
haven't-
what's his name? How do I find
Obviously,
him?
you haven't read his
Mansur.
thesis, haven't you?
Mansur.
You haven't read his thesis.
No, just look-
He's examined
just
some
look for SC
manuscripts.
Dawa.
You're not up to date on that, mate. You're not up to date on
SC.
that. You're not up to date on that.
My friend, how many manuscripts are there within the first 300 years of his manuscripts?
First 300 years. I don't know the number. But he's
Has
not
he examined all of them?
He is.
Not of
Yes.
seashells.
Seashells,
like-
literally.
you look- no, you should look on,
Altogether, we have
he-
quarter
that
of
into
a
YouTube.
million manuscripts.
No.
He has
But the
seashells.
very oldest,
Seashells,
the
yes.
very oldest,
Seashells.
the very oldest, the most
He had a debate
10,
with
10 oldest
actually the
manuscripts,
explanation.
like the ones he mentioned today, there has been
copy that entire thing.
4,000 variances found
Paste it into
in those old manuscripts. 4,000.
Let me give you an example of.
4,000.
Hang on.
Yeah?
Look, let me give
And
you
they're
some.
significant.
Let me give you some examples.
Significant.
You think significant? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Relax.
No.
Okay,
So,
found
I
it?
know.
That's come
See,
up.
that's in copies.
I've got it.
did you read the book?
Huh?
Have you read the book?
Yeah.
It's not going to
You've
be
read the
published
book?
still tomorrow, is it?
Not the book itself, but I've read the content. Because I was given the content yesterday.
Hang on.
All day, spent the whole
Have
day.
you read his
Selective reading.
thesis? The answer is no. Have you read his
I've
book?
looked at the variances.
Hang on.
I've looked at the
It's
variances.
what you guys do, isn't
The
it? You
methodology-
make general accusations
No.
all
I
the
know,
time.
I know.
Instead of
Look.
just sticking to the facts. Because the book
Excuse me.
book's being published tomorrow,
Hello?
so I didn't even know it's available yet.
Listen, do you want to
Yesterday, okay.
how his thesis is dismantled? Look at all this
But I got through that
Annotations.
copy yesterday.
By me
and I've
and
looked at
various
all the
other people who do that
variants.
same thing.
The 23
So
you
no,
mentioned.
this
Every
is not what I'm
single
saying. Because I'm saying
On the top copy,
this
manuscript,
particular
We'll
individual,
debunk it, no problem.
No, you won't.
this methodology,
You can't.
That's what they said the
It's
last time.
impossible.
less
Absolutely
than poor
impossible.
of a high school
Because
student.
these are in the museum.
Let me tell you why.
They're in the museum.
Let me tell you why.
It's
Doesn't
actually a
matter.
generic
So you
statement.
can try with some kind of twisted
I'm about to tell you why.
Okay, go on.
To establish, like this book says, corruption of the text implies there's some kind of intentional changes. This is his name of the thesis, intentional changes of the text.
Yeah.
But obviously, he doesn't tell you what he means by intentional changes.
Right.
Tell me, in his definition, what is an intentional change?
No idea.
Wasn't an accident.
Sorry, was it?
Wasn't an accident.
Wasn't an accident.
He means unintentional.
Yeah, it wasn't an
When we say biblical manuscripts are corrupted,
It was deliberate.
okay, deliberate.
Yeah.
So when someone scribes make a mistake by his eyesight and corrects it, is that a deliberate mistake?
That's not what it was. That's not what we're talking about.
Hang on. So this is the level of your ignorance that
No,
you're showing.
not at all.
Allow me to finish my statement. You cut me half in the middle.
You're insulting me.
This
Yeah,
is
you
the
are.
level
Like
of
the
your.
liar you
Yeah,
called
you
him
get
earlier.
personal with yourself.
Like the way
my
you called him a
friend.
liar
Personal
earlier.
bit.
My friend,
Like, I was speaking the truth.
Tyson,
As of you,
I'm gonna call a
Facts,
spade a
isn't it?
spade. You know why?
No, I'm not being
Because,
personal to you.
Suppose you're lying
he
anyway.
defines what he means by intentional
I'm not
change.
insulted by being like, if you
He
know,
says
if I'm lying,
basically-
Yeah.
You said
post
there
up
was
to
no
it.
Any
context,
changes.
and he gave you the context. So you lied.
Any changes.
You guys
So
don't
even
want to
if it
listen.
was,
You don't believe in a
even if it was a change by some accident, he calls that a change. But you know that this is not a corruption of a text. For example, you might just miss a word when you're writing. That's not an intentional corruption.
Right. Can I give you an example? Here's an example then. So we've got in the old manuscripts the dots, the diacritics, whatever you call them.
In Hebrew, you're talking
Yeah.
about?
In
Hebrew.
those
Greek.
generations, but at that time, those dots did not exist.
Of course
So
they
in
did.
the
Mansur, show it to me.
in those
From the
manuscripts.
first
Are you
century.
talking about the Hebrew now?
No,
You're
he's talking
talking
about
Hebrew,
No, the
Bible.
manuscripts of Quran.
Quranic, okay.
Those
okay.
Qurans,
Yeah.
as you see the Qurans, they're without the dots.
Show him the first
The
manuscript.
dots get added later on. So in this particular example of the
That's what I said, little knowledge is
of the
dangerous.
manuscript of that manuscript, which is the one you can find in a museum, it does not contain dots.
Which museum?
Huh?
Which museum?
The one in Topaki, wherever that is. What's the first one?
Copy.
Top copy,
Look,
yeah.
top
Where's
copy, I'll
top
tell you,
copy?
I'll
Top
tell you
copy.
now.
So let me finish. So in the top
finish.
copy, where he shows that this was an insertion, the insertion is the only element of the word that's got dots on them. All the ones around it have no dots.
Okay.
So it's a
So-
later correction, right?
Yes.
Good.
So it's
Now-
not like a typo, and I've
Okay,
able to and fix
wait-
it.
wait a moment.
Much later on, so therefore
Yeah.
somebody's come back to the manuscript
I have the
and
top
made
copy
the
on my
correction.
phone. We can go through the example if you want. Top copy is here on my phone.
With the dot, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, wait, slowly.
The
Now,
original top copy.
Excuse me.
Doesn't it?
One second.
Yeah.
Let me show you before I go to this. Look,
It's not top part.
on folio 330,
Yeah.
page 7R, there's an
No,
alif.
no.
Are you listening?
It's quite shiny actually. I thought you might be.
There is an alif insertion. So someone inserts an alif
kindness
there,
about him.
Yeah.
and you call it corruption, right? One example. Oh, in another one, there's an alif written on it. There's another one, another alif.
Yeah.
Right? Wait. Another alif.
Yeah.
So you're saying these are corruption, not realizing
That's
that
not. We never said
if
correction.
you
We
allow
said
me to
insertions.
finish,
Insertions.
if you allow me to finish,
Use the new word.
an alif is an insertion in
Right.
his understanding.
Yes.
So, Quranic manuscript had traditions in writing. Because you have the Kufans writing in a particular way, you have the Basrans writing in another way. So manuscripts were written in a particular tradition of writing, because writing itself was being developed as the Quran was revealed to them. The Arabs did not have a fully functional, developed orthography of Arabic language. Quran is the first book in Arabic language that you can even point to.
Okay.
Right. So when there are Quranic schools writing Quranic manuscripts in different area, in Basra and in Kufa and so on, they had their own traditions of how to write. The question is, how do you vocalize an oral text? For example, if I say I want to say Al-Alameen, now how do you write it with this prolongation? Are you going to write E-E-E-E-E-E-N at the end to say in? Or are you going to say one E? Or are you going to say E with a dash at the top? Convention is important. So when the Quran was written, in certain manuscript traditions, all of those things which has like a vowelized form of alif sound, like alamin, they would not have that vowel in there. So you might think it says just alamin, but actually when it's written, it will be always, when it's recited, it will always recite as alamin, even though there is no alif. This particular letter vowel A type sound, A sound. So certain manuscripts were kept with certain places, and they thought, now we want to read this manuscript. This is not like, oh, a treasure. When they had this manuscript, it wasn't a manuscript, it was just a copy of the Quran. They want to read it, and they want to say, I want to read it with this aid. Now we have the aids of dots and alif, whatever, we can make it easier for us to read. So they would differentiate this with a different color and put it on the text so it's easier to read. Original is there, so you can see that, okay, this is like a
Preserving the pronunciation.
Yes, so just making sure people are pronouncing correctly. Without the alif, you would still read it as Alameen, Malik, and so on. So these examples are not of corruption intentionally by adding text. Get a life and understand what's happening. Secondly,
We're not even saying that. That's not even the claim. That is not the claim.
Listen,
that is not even the claim.
Clearly, look, how can you even argue with me when you haven't even read the thesis?
Do they know even Arabic?
Look,
do you even understand?
Look,
Your
basics of
argument
Arabic.
is not against the claim.
You need to understand the basics of Arabic to know
The
this.
claim is saying that when we look at the original manuscript, those are the oldest manuscripts that we've got, which is not the original, obviously, because you haven't got an original manuscript.
We got the first century Al-Hijrah, unlike you guys.
Sorry.
You don't have the
You
first
don't have
century.
a full Quran at the very first one.
We do.
Anyway, guys, I'm going to go. Nice talking
Anyway,
to you.
likewise,
God
Julie.
bless.
Take care.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Where are you from? Are you? Where you?
Yeah, this long way away.
Long way
He
away.
doesn't want to tell you basically.
No, I won't.
But anyway, Julie, you get the.
Anyway,
Do you come down here every week?
yeah, pretty much.
No,
Okay.
you don't.
Sadly, pretty much.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Right,
Yes, I
right, it's
do.
okay.
I'm
it's
a
all right.
regular.
You know
Am I
these
not
guys
a
really
regular?
well.
We're old friends, Mark and I.
Yeah, we are.
Come on. So,
Anyway,
Julie, nice talking to you.
so-
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
By the way,
Anyway.
watch the video. I gave you the channel name.
If you go to the damn Brubaker, and of course there are 4,000 of these examples, in the book there are 22 that have been given, and these 22, we've got insertions, we've got subtext underneath,
I'll have a look.
We've got things that have been removed and
Are you
raised, we've got
intrigued though?
things
How do you two know
inserted
each other?
where there
How
wasn't
do you-
space.
from work?
Yeah, quite
I just told you,
No, from
manuscript
here.
revisions
From
can have
So it's
scribal
not
mistakes
like-
and
So this is like
correction
every
within
Sunday.
it.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
here's
like
the
he's just
point.
a bit
Here's
Muslim
the
or
point.
anything.
Is that because of the evidence we got, those
He's a proper
updates
mystery like you.
What does the
clearly
Muslim
done
look
at a
like?
later stage, not at the time.
Take care.
Not
Bye-bye.
at the time.
So this is a homework for
And
you
the
Christians.
reason why
Hang
we
on.
know this, sorry, let me just say this point. The reason why we know this, because there were different style of writing, different nib, different ink, and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Even Brubaker himself says this. Some of them are original correction by the original scribe.
Yeah.
You forgot to read that because you haven't read his thesis.
No, because somebody sent him only a selected.
Yeah. So what I'm asking
Portion of
you
the book
is
and
this:
he read-
a homework.
No, there's
A homework.
4,000.
Little knowledge is
it's
dangerous.
No, hang
not
on.
true.
A homework
Not
for you,
at
my
all.
friend. It is a homework.
Not at all.
Right. I want you,
This is
the
a red
Christians.
herring.
I want you, Christians, to find an example that you think was very significant, and find manuscripts, contemporaneous or earlier, which goes with supposed original and not this correction. Then you have a point. But if you can't find any manuscripts, but every manuscript is in line with how we read it, then you are just waffling and waffling, nothing else.
And
Waffling in the water.
Mark, also find the first century Christian manuscripts. Because you said 79 AD. I want to know where.
So what I'm saying is that when you look at the earliest 10 manuscripts,
Which manuscripts?
the earliest 10 that we
So are you talking about the Bible or the Quran now?
Quran.
Okay, good.
So in those manuscripts, you're seeing all sorts of variations, which has been documented. There are over 4,000 of them. Okay,
Just making a,
right?
how many of them, of this 4,000,
Yeah.
are actually variations that are consistent across the manuscripts from that period?
That's not my point.
That is my
No,
point.
but that's a red herring.
It's not a red herring.
Because what your claim is,
I don't think you understand what
what
he's
your
saying.
claim is, every manuscript is perfect and
Who's
without
claimed that?
error.
Who's claiming that?
Muslims, you guys have.
Wait,
even
slow-
claimed it.
slow
You
down.
claimed it.
Slow down.
You've claimed it.
Slow down. Which Muslims on
You.
planet Earth are saying every single manuscript is like a printed copy without any printing mistakes? Who claimed that?
You guys have.
I think you're just making
You're
up
just
things.
hearing
No.
fairy tales.
You said
should wrap
every
up. It's been long.
every ayah, every dot, every word, every surah.
Oh, now I
has been
realize.
preserved,
You have been
has been
brainwashed by
preserved.
all these
Your
things.
words, your
No,
words,
listen.
your words. I've heard it myself.
Listen.
I've heard it on the video. So
Of course, you didn't speak up.
I've heard
the language that I
So-
spoke.
No.
Let me tell you what I mean.
So what?
No, let me tell you what I
So
mean.
you said
it. Let him clarify.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
tell you what I
clarify.
mean.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Let me
in a
tell you what I
minute.
mean.
I'll give you in a minute.
No, before you, let me tell you because you have misunderstood
no.
it.
You're making an allegation against him. Let him
Well, let
clarify.
me finish my sentence.
Okay,
sir.
go on.
So that in case you misunderstand
Okay,
what
what did I
I'm trying
say?
to So what I'm saying is that you
What did I
said
say?
that the Quran
Yeah.
from the day of Muhammad has been preserved in every dot, every ayah, every element of the Quran. So when you go back
Finish
to
your
check,
sentence. Finish your sentence.
so to today,
No, finish your sentence.
yeah.
The
so
Quran is every dot, every ayah, and then finish your
yeah,
sentence.
every surah, every word has
What?
been preserved.
That's true.
And is
Preserved. Don't you get it?
no.
Preserved. Let me tell you how it's preserved. Do you know what a dot is in the manuscript tradition? What does a dot mean?
The diacritic, or whatever you call it. These five vowelations or whatever. The things that change the way that that particular word needs to be pronounced and understood.
A dot has two meanings. Go on. I give you the chance to now learn something today.
Yeah, you have 5 dots.
What
Five
do the
potential
dots?
2 at top and 3 down the bottom.
What do the dots represent in Quranic
Down the
manuscripts?
bottom. That's Urdu.
What
No, you have
do
dots
the
around
dots?
the left.
Okay.
Carry on.
What
Or
do the
something like
dots?
that.
What do the dots represent in the Quranic manuscripts? Obviously, it's clearly showing again. I'm going to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
You haven't picked up any scholarly work on the Quranic manuscripts. What they mean by dots? What is a dot in the Quranic manuscript tradition?
So that that particular word can be probably understood what it means in the way that you need to
You have
understand
the
that
option
word.
to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, be frank and say,
Is that not
sorry,
right?
I was misled
Is that
by
not
my
right?
team.
No,
I don't know.
no.
Let me tell you what it is. A dot could be differentiating between the letters with diacritical markings. To differentiate between ba and ta, you can have a dot or a marker and it differentiates it between the two consonantal letters. You can have dots which are colored, like green, blue, red, yellow. They can tell you about vowelization. So it's vowelization
Tajweed.
and diacriticization.
Yeah, I'll accept
So
that.
Quran has been preserved in both of these instances to this meticulous level of detail. So for example, we read Maliki Yawmiddin and Maliki Yawmiddin. Both have been preserved.
From day
Here's my
one.
issue with this.
From day one.
So when we look at the 10 manuscripts and you compare the surahs between the 10 manuscripts, they don't agree on every single passage in every ayah.
Here is my challenge to you.
There you go.
Yep. And to your.
There you go.
Hold on. Listen. I'm responding to
Surah
you.
66
I'm
verse 8 is a good example.
Okay, 66.8.
Yeah.
Are there any manuscripts contemporary to 66.8 that is exactly the same as this correction?
Say that again.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't quite-
66.8 is an
Yeah.
example. They said there's an
Yes.
insertion.
Yes.
Right.
And in the top copy, or whatever it's called, it
Look,
doesn't exist.
That particular manuscript has an insertion, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So insertion is a corruption, isn't it?
Potentially.
Right. So do we have, without the insertion, another manuscript of the same time or before, exactly same as this manuscript? Or even manuscripts later?
So what we're saying is like the top copy, or whatever way you pronounce that, that hasn't got that verse in at all.
Subhanallah.
Okay?
I am
So-
asking you simple. God-given brain, use
Yeah.
it please. If this is a corruption, meaning the original text was what it was there in the first time, and someone corrupted it by adding a word to it, right? That means forget the addition of the word. The original writing, do you have consistency of this writing with other manuscripts, because that's what the other manuscripts will have? Before, even or after?
We're not questioning that. We're questioning that there are variances between the manuscripts.
Do you not
That's
get
the
this
claim.
straight in your head?
Yeah.
God-given intelligence,
You
use
don't need
it
to
by...
insult me.
Look,
Don't need to insult me.
I'll tell you what.
That's personal.
Excuse me, I am going to call a spade